It was not called the Old Forest without reason, for it was indeed ancient, a survivor of vast forgotten woods, and in it there lived yet, aging no quicker than the hills, the fathers of trees, remembering times when they were lords. The countless years had filled them with pride and rooted wisdom, and with malice. Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we're going to take a look at the history of the Old Forest, which was also the home of Tom Bombadil. Links for more information and some sources for information may be found in the description and cards. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. Our journey today takes us to the Old Forest, so old in fact, that in the elder days of the world, before the sun and moon, when the world was lit by the stars and the light of the trees at the western edge of the world, and perhaps even before the years of the trees, the Old Forest was there, and grander than it would ever be in its future. From what I can tell, based on what Elrond said about a squirrel once being able to go from the lands that were later called the Shire, from tree to Dunland, and with the references that Galadriel makes about Beleriand to Treebeard, I believe the Old Forest was connected to the forests of Osiriand, and perhaps even beyond in the west. And it connected to Fangorn in the southeast, and possibly even Lindornand, later called Lorien in the east. At the very least, the Old Forest, if it wasn't that great, was rather still a large and connected forest in the elder days of the world, and it stretched back almost to the beginning of time, and a part of it still remained late in the world, in the Fourth Age and beyond. Within the forest, oldest and fatherless was the Master, and his origins are unknown, for he is Tom Bombadil, and he might even outdate the forest itself. Tom Bombadil would, at some point, make his home among the trees of the Old Forest, west and slightly south of the town of Bree. He took Goldberry, the river daughter, to wife, and together they dwelt within their home in the Old Forest, even as the years under the sun and moon and the people who came with them diminished the forest in size. Whereas once it had spanned across a great amount of Middle-earth, by the end of the Third Age it was small, being west of the river Brandywine, in the western part of the old kingdom of Cardolan and its Barrow Downs. Through the forest ran the Withawindle River. During the Second Age, with the coming of the Númenóreans and their need for wood in Middle-earth, much of the forest's outer trees were cut down, and the forest did diminish in this way. It was made even smaller in the Mid-Third Age with the coming of hobbits who settled in Buckland. Gorhindad Oldbuck was their leader, and they pushed the forest back with their axes to make their village. The hobbits went on to make a great hedge to keep the forest at bay as well, and when the forest began to grow back too closely, the hobbits cut them back and made a bonfire to create a clearing between them and the Old Forest, as they called it. Perhaps even the men of Cardolan used some of the wood. In fact, it is likely, as some even took refuge within the forest in their attempts to escape the Witch King during the war, and Tom Bombadil befriended some of these people before their ends. All of this abuse of the forest over the years may have been the source of its strange nature in the later ages, as it became a rather dangerous place. It was not a safe place to journey into in the late Third Age, as our four hobbits, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, knew rather well when they needed to do so in 3018. As they journeyed through the forest, the trees would sway without wind, and gave them an unsettling feeling, as if they were being watched or whispered to, and they were easily led astray in the forest. Whether it was the chaos done upon the forest in years past, or some other force, some manner of relatively conscious life came into some of the trees, or at least one of them, Old Man Willow. It is likely that, at some point in Middle-earth's history, Ents passed through this forest, although it is unlikely that any really remained there and were not tree-ish by the end of the Third Age, at least in my opinion. However, horns are a different story, and Old Man Willow seemed to be some sort of horn, perhaps, for he ensnared the hobbits, and they were caught in a daze and drowsiness, only to be saved by Tom Bombadil, the Master. Old Man Willow really represents a lot of the malice that was in the forest, somewhat personified within one tree. Tom Bombadil brought them back from Old Man Willow to his home, and along with Goldberry, Tom would aid them along their journey from there. Later on in the story, there are hints about connections and eerie similarities between the Old Forest and the Fangorn, and Tom and Treebeard, whether or not they indeed knew each other from the past at all. And after the destruction of the ring, Gandalf would go on back to the Old Forest and spend some time with Bombadil, the Moss Gatherer, as Gandalf called him. Beyond this, we know little about the fate of the Old Forest and its few inhabitants, at least among the people of Middle-earth. although I am sure it was a protected part of the new Northern Kingdom under Aragorn until perhaps it would be settled over in the Age of Men, though I am not sure, but such a thing would fit with some of Tolkien's themes to happen. Honestly, this is a strange region in Middle-earth, just like the Fangorn and some other forests are as well. But in some ways, it's even stranger since there are so many unanswered questions about the forest. But it is an enigma that I do like. Even as I wrote the script for this video, I pondered the nature of the forest and its morality. But I think it is truly just nature, not really good nor evil, although it perhaps leans towards the good under the mastery of Tom Bombadil. But it is certainly dangerous in its own right, especially after its history. Just like the conversations about Celeborn warning the Fellowship about the Fangorn, and that Treebeard would have said the same to the Fellowship about Lorien had they been going the other way. The Old Forest is a dangerous and fell place, but not evil. The Old Forest had certainly been hurt in its past, and perhaps that is what made it so dangerous. Or perhaps it was only natural. And so, on that strange and inconclusive note, we come to the end of our tale on the Old Forest, the home of Tom Bombadil. From this tale we see that one's nature may not be wholly good nor evil, but nevertheless profound and powerful, a response to what we've been through in the past, just like the nature of the Old Forest. Thank you all so much for watching, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. Let me know your thoughts on the Old Forest in the comments below. I really like this area, the mystery and intrigue, and though it is difficult not to be able to provide more information to you all in this video, I'm also glad that the mystery of this forest will never be ended with too many answers. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Weta or United Cutlery, Lord of the Rings swords, statues, and other replicas from Castle Kon, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout, and please check out our merch and Patreon. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members, Peter Shepard, Jonathan Putin, and Mark Kralik, Molly Sullivan, Blair Scott and Merton, John Hume, Sam McBee, Matt Sabatch, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibbs, Reese Jenkins, Anna Petrolik, Anthony Harmon, Doran Gray, Arthur, Merlin, Dale Davis, Kingswald Project, and Robert Bogue. Thank you so much to all of our patrons and YouTube members. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the free peoples today, and I'll see you all again next Sunday with a video on the top 5 stories from Middle-earth that I think should be adapted, seeing that we've had some more recent news about possible adaptations. You all are the best, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.